शुक्लां भरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये अपारकरुणासिन्धुं ज्ञानदं शान्तरूपिणं Sri Chandrasekharendra प्रणमामि मुदान्वहम्. Hindu Dharma Part 3, The Vedic Religion and Varna Dharma, Chapter 6, Who is responsible for the decay of Varna Dharma? Politicians and intellectuals alike say that jati is part of an uncivilized system. Why? Who is responsible for the disintegration of so worthy an arrangement as Varna Dharma? These are questions that I raised earlier, and I shall try to answer them. The wrong ideas that have developed about Varna Dharma must be ascribed to the Brahmins themselves. They are indeed responsible for the decay of an ages-old system that contributed not only to our Atmic advancement but also to the well-being of the nation as well as of all mankind. The Brahmin relinquished the duties of his birth, the study of the Vedas and performance of the rites laid down in the Vedic tradition. He left his birthplace, the village, for the town. He cropped his hair and started dressing in European style. Giving up the Vedas, he took to the mundane learning of the West. He fell to the lure of jobs offered by his white master and aped him in dress, manners and attitudes. He threw to the winds the noble dharma he had inherited from the Vedic seers through his forefathers and abandoned all for a mess of pottage. He was drawn to everything Western, science, lifestyle, entertainment. The canonical texts the canonical texts have it that the Brahmin must have no love for money, that he must not accumulate wealth. So long as he followed his dharma as prescribed by the Shastras, and so long as he chanted the Vedas and performed sacrifices, he brought good to the world, and all other castes respected him and treated him with affection. In fact, they looked upon him as a guide and model. Others now observed how the Brahmin had changed, how his lifestyle had become different with all its glitter and show, and how he went about with all the pretense of having risen on the scale of civilization. The Brahmin had been an ideal for them in all that is noble, but now he strayed from the path of dharma. And following his example, they too have given up their traditional vocations that had brought them happiness and contentment and left their native village to settle in towns. Like the Brahmin, they became keen to learn English and secure jobs in the government. For thousands of years, the Brahmin had been engaged in Atmic pursuit and intellectual work. In the beginning, all his mental faculties were employed for the welfare of society and not in the least for his own selfish advancement. Because of this very spirit of sacrifice, his intelligence became sharp like a razor constantly kept honed. Now, the welfare of society is no longer the goal of his efforts, and his intelligence has naturally dimmed due to his selfishness and interests in things worldly. He had been blessed with a bright intellect, and he had the grace of the Lord to carry out the duties of his birth. Now, after forsaking his dharma, it is natural that his intellectual keenness should become blunted. Due to sheer momentum, the bicycle keeps going some distance even after you stop pedaling. Similarly, though the Brahmin seeks knowledge of mundane subjects instead of inner light, he retains yet a little intellectual brightness as a result of the pedaling done by his forefathers. It is because of this that he has been able to achieve remarkable progress in Western learning also. He has acquired expert knowledge in the practices of the West, in its law, and its industries. Indeed, he has gained such insights into these subjects and mastered their finer points so remarkably well that he can give lessons to the white man himself in them. A question that arises in this context is how Vedic studies, which had not suffered much even during Muslim rule, received a severe setback with the advent of the European. One reason is the impact of the new sciences and the machines that came with the white man. Granted that many a truth was revealed through these sciences, and this was all to the good up to a point. But we must remember that the knowledge of a subject per se is one thing, and how we use it in practice is another. The introduction of steam power and electricity made many types of work easier, but it also means comfort here to unthought of to gratify the senses. If you keep pandering to the senses more and more, new desires are engenerated. This will mean the production of an increasing number of objects of pleasure. The more we try to obtain sensual pleasure, the more we will cause injury to our innermost being. The new pleasures that could be had with scientific development and the introduction of machines were an irresistible lure for the Brahmin as they were to other communities. Another undesirable product of the sciences bought by the white man was rationalism, which undermined people's faith in religion and persuaded some to believe that the religious truths that are based on faith and are inwardly experienced are nothing but deception. The man who did not give up his duties even during Muslim rule now abandoned them for the newfound pleasures and comforts. He dressed more smartly than the Englishman, smoked cigarettes, and even learned to dance like white master. Those who thus became proficient in the arts of the white man were rewarded with jobs. Now occurred the biggest tragedy. Up until now, all members of society had their hereditary jobs to do, and they did not have to worry about their livelihood. Now, with the example of the Brahmin before them, members of other castes also gave up the traditional occupations for the jobs made available by the British in the banks, railways, collectorates, etc. With the introduction of machinery, our handicrafts fell into decay, and many of our artisans had to look for other means of livelihood. In the absence of any demarcation in the matter of work and workers, there arose competition for jobs for the first time in the country. It was a disastrous development, and it generated jealousy, ill will, disputes, and a host of other evils among people who had hitherto lived in harmony. Ill feelings developed between Brahmins and non-Brahmins also. How Brahmins formed only a small percentage of the population, but they were able to occupy top positions in the new order owing to their intelligence, which, as I said before, was a result of the paddling done by their forefathers. They excelled in all walks of life, in administration, in academics, in law, in medicine, engineering, and so on. The white man made his own calculations about developing animosity between Brahmins and non-Brahmins and realized that by fueling it he could strengthen his old hold on the country. He fabricated the Aryan Dravidian theory of races, and the seeds of differences were sown among children born of the same mother. It was a design that proved effective in a climate already made unhealthy by rivalry for jobs. As if to exacerbate this ill will, the Brahmin took one more disastrous step. On the one hand, he gave up the dharma of his caste and joined hands with the British in condemning the old order by branding it as barbarous one in which one man exploited another. But on the other, though he spoke the language of equality, he kept aloof from other castes, thinking himself to be superior to them. If in the past he had not mixed physically with members of other castes, it did not mean that he placed himself on a high pedestal. We must remember that there was a reason for his not coming into physical contact with other castes. There have to be differences between the jatis based on food, work, and surroundings. The photographer needs a dark room to develop his films. To shoot a film, on the contrary, powerful lights are needed. Those who work in a factory canteen have to be spuriously clean, but those who must dust mission wear soiled cloths. This does not mean that the waiter in a canteen is superior to the factory hand who dusts mission. The man who takes the utmost care to keep himself intellectually bright without any thought of himself observe fasts, while the soldier who has to be strong and tough eats meat. Why should there be bad feelings between the two, between the Brahmin and the Kshatriya? Does the Brahmin have to come into physical contact with the Kshatriya to prove that he does not bear any ill will towards him? If he interdined with the Kshatriya, he would be tempted to taste meat, and such a temptation might eventually drag him into doing things that militate against his own duty. Each community has its own duties, customs and food habits. If all jatis mix together on the pretext of equality without regard to their individual ways of life, all work would suffer and society itself would be plunged in confusion. It was with a definite purpose in view that village was divided into different quarters, the Agrahara, the Brahmin quarter, the agriculturist quarter, and so on. Such a division was possible in rural life but not in the new urban way of living. With urbanization and industrialization, it became necessary for people belonging to various jatis to work together on the same shift, sit together in the same canteen to eat the same kind of food. The Brahmin, for whom it is obligatory to observe fasts and vows and to perform various rites, was now seen to be no different from others. Office and college timings were a hindrance to the carrying out of these rites. So the Brahmin threw them to the winds. He had so far taken care to perform these rites with the good of others in mind. Like a trustee, he had protected Dharma for the sake of society and made its fruits available to all that belonged to the past. Now the Brahmin came forward, proclaiming that all were equal and that he was one with the rest. All the same, he became the cause of burning among others. And ironically enough, in becoming one with them, he also competed with them for jobs. That apart, though he talked of equality, he still thought himself to be superior to others, in spite of the fact that he was not a bit more careful than they about the performance of religious duties. Was this not enough to earn him more hatred? The Brahmin spoiled himself and spoiled others. By abandoning his dharma, he became a bad example to others. Now, after he had divested himself of his dharma, there was nothing to give him distinction, to mark him out from others. As a matter of fact, even by strictly adhering to his dharma, the Brahmin is not entitled to feel superior to others. He must always remain humble in the belief that everyone performs a function in society and that I perform mine. If at all others respected him in the past and accorded him a high place in society, it was in consideration of his selfless work, his life of austerity, discipline and purity. Now he had descended to such depths as to merit their most abrasive criticism. It is my decided opinion that the Brahman is responsible for the ruin of Hindu society. Some people have found an explanation for it. The Brahman, if he is to be true to his dharma, has to spend all his time learning and chanting the Vedas, in performing sacrifices, in preserving the Shastras, etc. What will he do for a living? If he goes in search of money or material, he will not be able to attend to his lifetime mission, and this mission is not accomplished on a part-time basis. And if he takes up some other work for his livelihood, he is likely to become lax in the pursuit of his dharma. It would be like taking medicine without the necessary diet regimen. The begin power gained by the Brahmin from his Vedic learning will be reduced, and there will be a corresponding diminution in good occurring to the mankind from his work. This is one reason why Brahmins alone are permitted by the Shastras to beg for their living. In the past, they received help from the kings, grants of lands for instance, in consideration of the fact that dharma practiced by them benefited our people. But the Shastras also have it that Brahmins must not accept more charity than what is needed for their bare sustenance. If they receive anything in excess, they would be tempted to seek sensual pleasures, and thereby an impediment would be placed to their inner advancement. There is also the danger of their becoming submissive to the donor and of their twisting the Shastras to the latter's liking. It was with the full awareness of these dangers that in old days the Brahmins practiced their dharma under the patronage of Rajas, accepting the charity to the minimum and not subjecting themselves to any influence de- determinal to their dharma. The argument of those who have found an excuse for the conduct of later day Brahmins goes thus. Brahmins ceased to receive gifts from rulers after the inception of British rule. How can you expect them to live without any income? Force of circumstances made them to take English education and thereafter to seek jobs with the government. It is unjust to find fault with them on that score. There is possibly some force in this argument, but it does not fully justify the change that has come over Brahmins. Before the British, the Mughals ruled us, and before them, a succession of sultanates. During these periods, a few Pandits must have found a place in Darbar, but all other Brahmins adhered to their dharma, did they not? Without any support from any ruler. The phenomenon of Brahmin quarter becoming deserted, the village being ruined, the Patashala, the Vedic school, becoming forlorn, and the lands granted to Brahmins turning into mere certificates is not more than 100 years old. Did not Vedic Dharma flourish until a generation ago? The Vedic religion prospered in the past not only because of the patronage extended to the Brahmins by the Hindu rulers. People belonging to all Varnas then were anxious that it should not become weak and perish. They saw to it that the Brahmin community did not weaken and contributed generously to its upkeep and to the nurturing of the Vedic tradition. Today, you see hundreds of Vedic schools deserted. There are few Brahmin boys willing to study the scriptures. Who had raised the fund for Vedic institutions? In Tamil Nadu, the Natukottai Nagarattas, Komutti Chettiyars, and Vellalas. The work done by Nagarattaras for our temples is indeed remarkable. Throughout Tamil Nadu, if they build a temple, they also build a Vedic school along with it in the belief that the Vedas constituted the root of the temple. This root, they felt, was essential to the living presence of the deity in the temple and for the puja conducted there. Similarly, the big landowners among the Vellalas made lavish donations to the Vedic schools. If the Brahmin had not been tempted by the European lifestyle and if he were willing to live austerely according to the dictates of the Shastras, other castes would have come forward to help him. It is not that the others deserted him. He himself ran away from his dharma, from his agrahara, from his village and from the Vedic school because of his new appetite for the life of luxury made possible with the new technology of the West. He forgot his high ideals and paid scant respect to the principle that the body's requirements are not more than what it takes, in physical terms, to help the well-being of the self. All told, the argument that the Brahmin was compelled to abandon his dharma because he was denied his daily bread does not hold water. We cannot but admit that the Brahmin became greedy, that he earned far more than what he needed for his sustenance. Let us conclude that the Brahmin left his village because he could not feed himself there, came to a city like Madras. But did he find contentment here? What do we see today in actual practice? Suppose a Brahmin receives a salary of 1,000 in Madras today. If he gets a job in Delhi with double the salary, he runs off there. When he goes to Delhi, he would abandon totally the dharma he was able to practice, at least to a small extent in Madras. Later, if he were offered 4,000 a month in America, he would leave his motherland for that country, lured by the prospect of earning a fortune. There, in the United States, he would become totally alienated from his religion, from his dharma, from all his traditions. The Brahmin is willing to do anything, go to any extent for the sake of money. For instance, he would join the army if there were the promise of more income in it. If necessary, he would even take to eating meat and to drinking. The usual excuse touted out for Brahmin deserting the dharma does not wash. I will go one step further. Let us suppose that following the import of Western technology, other communities also became averse to observing their respective dharmic traditions. Let us assume that with their thinking and feelings influenced by the Aryan Dravidian theory, consorted by the English, these castes decided not to support the Brahmin any longer. Let us further assume that to feed himself for the sake of a handful of rice, the Brahmin had to leave hearth and home and work in an office somewhere away from his native village. Were he true to his dharma, he would tell himself, I will continue to adhere to my dharma, come what may, even at the risk of death. With this resolve, he would have made a determined effort to pursue Vedic learning and keep up his traditional practices. There is no point, however, in suggesting what people belonging to the generation that has gone by should have done. I would urge the present generation to perform the duties that the past generation neglected to perform. To repeat, you must not forsake your dharma even on the pain of death. Are we going to remain deathless? As it we accumulate money, worse, suffer humiliation and earn the jealousy of others, and finally we die losing caste by not remaining true to our dharma. Is it not better then to starve and yet be attached firmly to our dharma so long as there is breath in us? Is not such loyalty to our dharma a matter of pride? Why should we care about how others see us, whether they honor us or speak ill of us? So long as we do not compete with them for jobs, they will have no cause for jealousy or resentment. Let them call us backward or stupid or think that we are not capable of keeping abreast of the times. Are we not now already their butt of ridicule? Let us be true to our dharma in the face of mockery of others. Even in the face of death. Is not such a lot preferable to suffering the slings of scorn and criticism earned by forsaking our dharma for the sake of filling our belly? People nowadays die for their motherland. They lay down their lives for their mother tongue. They do not need a big cause like the freedom of the country to be roused to action. They quote death, immolate themselves, even for a cause they may seem trivial, like the merger of a part of their district in another. Was there any demonstration of faiths like this, such willingness to die for a cause or a belief when the British came here with their lifestyle? At that time, did we protect our dharma with courage in the belief that even death was a small price to pay for it? The Lord himself has declared in the Gita that it is better to die abiding by one's dharma than prosper through another man's dharma. Nidhanam Shreyaha. Brahmins who have seen no reason to change their lifestyle during the long Muslim period of our history changed it during British rule. Why? New sciences and machinery came with the white man. The motor car and electricity had their own impact on life here. Brahmins were drawn to comforts and conveniences not thought of before. This could be a reason for their change of life, but not a justification. The Brahmin is not to regard his body as a means of enjoyment of sensual pleasures, but as an instrument for the observance of such rites as are necessary to protect the Vedas. And the Vedas have to be protected for the welfare of mankind. The basic dharma is that to the body of the Brahmin nothing must be added that incites his sensual appetite. It was a fundamental mistake on the part of the Brahmin to have forgotten the spirit of sacrifice that imbues his dharma and became a victim of the pleasures and comforts easily obtained from the new gadgets and instruments. There is pride in adhering to one's dharma even when one is faced with adverse circumstances. Brahmins during British rule committed a grave mistake by not doing so, and we are suffering the consequences. Since the ill will in the country today among children of the same mother. See the ill will in the country today among the children of the same mother. We have created suffering for others also. At first, Brahmins were denied admission to colleges and refused jobs. Now, things have come to such a press that other communities also suffer the same fate. All was well so long as man, using his own innate resources lived a simple life without the help of machines. With more and more factories and increasing machine power, life itself had become complicated. The situation today is such that everyone is facing difficulties in getting admission to college or in getting a job. People ask me, what is the remedy today? Do you expect all Brahmins to leave their new lifestyle and return to Vedic learning? Whether or not I expect them to do so, and whether or not such a step seems possible, I must ask them to do so, to return to their Vedic Dharma. Where is the need for a where is the need for a Gurupita or a seat on which an Acharya is installed if I am to keep my mouth shut and watch ideally as the Dharma, that is the source of everything, is being endangered? Even if seems not possible, Brahmins returning to the Dharma of their birth, it must be shown to be possible in practice. That is the purpose of the institutions called mathas. They all harness their energies towards the attainment of this goal. During the years of the freedom struggle, some people wondered whether the white man would quit because of satyagraha. Many things in this world regarded as not being within the realm of possibility have been shown to be possible. It is not for me to say that the return of all Brahmins to the Vedic Dharma, is not possible. To take such a view would be contrary to our very Dharma. It is up to you to make it possible in practice or not to make it possible. All I can do is to keep reminding you of the message of the Dharma Shastras. Hari Om Tat Sat.